Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer for Geek Vibes Nation. I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do is we go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases. Some are good, some are bad. But you know what? We always have a really fun time talking about them. But you're going to kick this party off.
Yes, I am. I'm getting it started right because it is one that whenever they announced it, I'm like, oh, this is one of the ones I'm most excited about this year. It is the Shout Factory 4K upgrade of Clue, the comedy classic. And I've seen this one several times and it's always a treat to revisit it, but especially this time in 4K, which I'll get around to in a little, like just a second. I won't dig too much into the actual mechanics of the movie Clue. It's pretty simple. It's a group of strangers are brought together in a house, and they for like a dinner party, and they start getting killed by one, and they try to or they're trying to figure out who is responsible for like these deaths that are occurring throughout the house, like with some of the servants and all these other people. And it's just a ton of great comedy actors from that time. You got Madeline Kahn, Tim Curry, Christopher Lloyd, Eileen Brennan, Martin Mull, Leslie Ann Warren, Michael McKean, Colleen Camp. There's just a murderer's row of comedic talent, and they are just all like perfectly suited for their roles, adapted from the classic board game, which I also played a lot when I was younger. This just has like a tempo that I just find very comforting, and just like the exchanges that they have. It's just a hilarious movie, and it's just one that I've always really enjoyed ever since I was young. I think the appeal of it being based on this board game that I knew was what initially hooked me, but I've just come to appreciate the movie for its own thing because they have just the amount of talent they assembled in this one movie, especially Tim Curry, who's like the MVP in my opinion. It's just fantastic. And as I alluded to earlier, watching this in 4K is fantastic because like I said, I've seen this several times before, but it feels like I'm probably seeing it for the first time how it's supposed to be seen, with all the nuances within the production design and everything. Because the old Blu-ray was not the best. It's kind of lacking. And with this 4K presentation, which is from a 4K scan of the original camera negative presented in Dolby Vision, you do get all the nuances of the production design, which within this mansion, you have a lot of ornate production design that you want to see all the facets of, and all the costumes of like Miss Scarlet and everything. Just seeing all the details of the costumes is really great. Also, there's more detail in certain like the black levels, like they're deeper black, so you can see certain details that you may have been swallowed up in darkness in previous transfers. It's just a really great, robust, naturally filmic transfer, which I didn't see any major encoding issues, which is always welcome. So this is a fantastic presentation. It has the original mono, I believe it is, the DTS 2.0 mono. Not too much in the way of new special features, but there are some new special features. But first, one of the iconic things about this movie is that there are three different endings that originally played within the movie theater, and people could go to different theaters to see different ones. But whenever it's been released on home video, usually there's the option just to play them all back to back, like the trilogy ending. So you can kind of see like, this is what happened. Oh, but this is what really happened. And they just kind of cycle through them. You do have the option to play it that way, or you can make it choose at random for them to just pick one of the endings, which I think is really cool if you just want to experience it how it was back in the day in a theater, just like picking one of the, like just seeing what ending you were going to get. You can do that, or you can just cycle through all three of them and just see just kind of all of them at once. So you do get that option on this disc. In addition to that, though, with the special features, you do get three new interviews with like the director, the associate producer, and then you have a film historian talking about the music of the movie. It's a pretty like decent information within all of this. It's a really informative interviews. So all in all, I wish I could have gotten some interviews with the cast, but what we have here is really great. And most importantly is the movie, and it looks and sounds fantastic. So I think anyone who is a fan of Clue, like I am, and I probably assume that you are, I think you'll be very pleased with this release because Clue really hits it out of the park.
Well, do you remember I have a Clue shirt where she's like,
Yes, that's right. I should have given you more of a heads up. You could have worn it.
oh yeah. But speaking of, I just want to call attention real quick. Your t-shirt game is always on point, but I'm loving this.
Yep. My Scream Christmas sweater. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
love it. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And that is definitely like a day one buy for I think a lot of people. And yeah, I'm super relieved that it looks really great and it's a nice upgrade. So my first title is one that it's not the best, but I will say the presentation is probably better than the movie. And that is Zombie Holocaust, which is so this is a 4K from Severin, but you also get the it's a little weird, but it's alternatively known as Dr. Butcher in the US. It's like a re-edited. I'll get into a little bit of that in a second, but yeah, the movie is just it's kind of just fine. It's one of those movies where it's kind of a shame that it didn't really ever have anything sort of stand out as far as like its contemporaries. Like I'm thinking like Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead or Zombie. Um, it never really has those standout moments where genre fans really tout this as kind of amazing or standout, but there is a lot of charm to it. So you have it's a pretty standard. You get a group of people on an island. What's engaging is there's a mystery, and you're kind of only drip fed sort of what's going on this island. And I think that in and of itself is pretty good because it's hooks you with at least a little bit of an engaging narrative. And I will say, like, the gore effects are pretty good. And it's nice to see it looking really nice in 4K. Um, it's not without some little bit of damage and artifacts, but I think that is just maybe by virtue of the source material and not necessarily like Severin's fault, because I think overall you do get a nice pop in color and clarity. I've seen this before and it always kind of never looks great. So seeing it really pop in this edition is really great. Um, and then so with Dr. Butcher, so I noted some of the changes. They have a new opener, which actually they took from like anthology that never got off the ground, and the opener really has nothing to do with the movie because it's not even from the movie. They add new music, but it's kind of weird because in certain places the old score you can kind of hear underneath the new added like Cynthia score. It's so weird. um this is really nobody's favorite version of the film, but for fans and completists, just to have that cut and have it in 4K is really awesome. We do get like a smorgasbord of extras and like everything a fan could want. Severin really has provided. Let me show you inside. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. We do get one of the coolest things. Like you won't really ever see this in a Criterion release, even though I love Criterion, but it's a barf bag.
Nice.
And yeah, it comes in handy. So this was obviously like a reproduction of like the original thing that they did, but so here is how the discs are here you get the 4K of Butcher, Zombie Holocaust, and then you get the Blu-ray editions also of both films. So that's also nice to know because if you're not Blu-ray compatible, or I'm sorry, 4K compatible yet, they do have the 4K, or oh my God, they do have the Blu-ray versions that still look really nice. And again, you just get that option. So I think the overall presentation and packaging is probably better than the film itself, but I don't know. I like Zombie Holocaust. It's fun. Again, it never has any of the really standout moments of like maybe some of the other like zombie movies. Although I like how this kind of has, it's not a cannibal film, but it kind of has that trapped on an island, you know, gory shenanigans that kind of feels like a cannibal movie, but it's not. So yeah, I dig it. It's fun. It's not the best, but also I just want to like reiterate, like this packaging. I don't know if you can see, like it's kind of raised and stuff. Really top notch, like just beautiful. Same with Dr. Butcher. So, and then the spine, you can display it. Either way, I think that's really fun. And yeah, I think Severin, holy crap. I mean, I'm never shocked that they're top tier, but this is really great. If you're a horror fan, you want to like, if you're buying something for somebody that's a horror fan, yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I always really love Severin, and they always put out really great packages. So I'm glad that they put out such a good one for that one. I just wanted to say, if you are not Blu-ray compatible and you're watching this, you're probably going to have a rough time with what we're talking about, because there might not be much for you. But we still welcome you. I'm just saying, probably baseline what you should be if you're watching this show. My next title is a Blu-ray, and I'm continuing the run through boutique labels that we really love. We started with Shout Factory, we have Severin. Now I'm going to Arrow Video. This is the new release of The Day of the Locust, which I'd never seen before. I was very interested, not just because it has Karen Black, but it has Donald Sutherland and Burgess Meredith and William Atherton. This seemed unique because Arrow doesn't strictly do like horror movies and martial arts movies, but it seems to be more of what they're known for. And so I was interested that this was more of just like a straightforward drama. But I love it, and it's through their presentation with Paramount. I am reversing the cover art, which I probably should have done ahead of time, but this is the cover art here. Which is pretty snazzy. I'll probably leave that turned around. And you have the disc here, just the inside, and then you have this booklet here, which has a essay and restoration notes and reproductions and all kinds of stuff in here. So just to enhance your appreciation of the movie. So The Day of the Locust, this one was quite an adventure because first off, I noticed it was quite long. It's 2 hours and 24 minutes long, and in a unique bit of timing. I just recently covered The Last Tycoon with Robert De Niro from Kino, which kind of took a look at the early days of like the golden era of Hollywood, and this does the same thing. Probably in a little bit different way. It takes less of a focus on the big wigs at the studios and takes more of a look at the people who are struggling within the business in the 1930s. So the beginning of the movie is like a struggling like a storyboard artist who moves to Hollywood and moves into this apartment complex, and he meets Karen Black's character, who's like a struggling actress who's like mostly just been in background parts or single line moments in film. But he kind of starts to be infatuated with her and kind of gets wrapped up in her world. And this is, it's a lot of the stories about how like the kind of corrupt and freewheeling nature of Hollywood at this time. And there is like, whenever you do see the corporate bigwigs, they are usually doing some very shady shit. And there's especially, I won't spoil it, but there's a very thrilling set piece near the end of the movie. It really took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting it, but just like it created a visceral reaction in me that like few horror movies have even like elicited in me, just because it seems like more realistic than a lot of like the horror movies I see. It just seemed like it was more kind of like a natural disaster, and I was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. And then there's also another memorable like sequence of events in the finale, which is very chilling. So this is a lot of just like the moral decay and how it kind of this seedy scene of Hollywood just kind of infects these characters, and you like them one moment and then they'll do something that's like horrendous the next. And Donald Sutherland, he plays a character who's kind of more on the outside of this, but then he gets involved with one of the characters, and just seeing his evolution from kind of like a good natured guy who's just like wouldn't hurt a fly to just where he ends up at the end of the movie is it's quite something. If you're interested in like kind of like sprawling melodrama set in early Hollywood, I think you'll really like this, especially if you're a fan of Karen Black, because I think this is one of the times where she was really allowed to like be given a really meaty role outside of like her normal genre expertise, which she's great at, but just to see her more in a straightforward drama is just really I really like this for her, and just I like to kind of like, for me at least, expanded her kind of career a little bit and just what she was capable of, because I do love her quite a bit. This Blu-ray is quite nice. This does come from a 2K scan from the 2K remaster of the original camera negative. This is one, I think you kind of alluded to this with your last title. I think the source elements maybe were not in the best shape, because there are moments of softness, which I was kind of like, oh, I'm not used to that with certain like arrow encodes, because they're so solid. I don't think there's anything like necessarily wrong with what they did. I think there's just like a little bit of deficiency in the source elements that maybe make it not quite as crisp as certain things that they've put out, but it looks very nice. There's not a ton of damage or anything like that. The film grain is there. It's very thick. So people who do not like really grainy movies, that's how they look. So you got to accept it, but you probably won't be super pleased with this, but it's very nicely resolved. It's not like noise. It's just the natural film grain of how it was shot. This does come with the original mono track, and then 2 stereo tracks, one in DTS 2.0, one with an expanded 5.1. So you do get a couple different audio options, and then you get a commentary track and a couple of visual essays and a featurette, like an appreciation featurette, and just a good number of film historians kind of weighing in on this and kind of giving their thoughts on how this is kind of a seminal work of, I believe it's early 70s Hollywood, and just kind of how they were reflecting back on the 30s and stuff, and just how that kind of reflected the culture and everything. So it's a really good movie. Not quite what Arrow puts out all the time, but I think it's a very good movie. Hell, I talked about Witness recently, which is also kind of atypical, but I love that they kind of can cover a wide variety of stuff. So Day of the Locust is worth checking out, especially if you're interested in early Hollywood films.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there so this is the limited edition disc. Is it just the booklet that's and the slipcover that's limited, or is there like an extra disc?
Yeah, I believe so, because there's no poster in here and there's nothing else that's like, they're not going to change the disc from here to there. So there's no second disc. I think it's just the booklet and the slipcover. But
Okay.
I do like the slipcover. And then like I said, you do get the option of just having different cover art this way, and you can have both. So I like to get the limited editions when I can, and I always get a little bit irritated with myself when I wait a little bit too long.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I just wanted to make sure, like, because I know sometimes they do
Mhm.
maybe not as much as they used to, but like the like extra disc of like, but yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's one that I've wanted to see for a while. It was always kind of hard to find, at least in the US. So that all by itself is really exciting, but the
Mhm.
presentation seems pretty good. For my next title, I'm sticking with Severin, and I'm dipping back into Jess Franco, and this is his take on Count Dracula, starring Christopher Lee. And again, it's kind of a little bit more subtle, but like you can see, like you get a raised cover there, really beautiful slipcover. Presentation's really nice. So, and then we get like yours, we get alternate cover art featuring um, more of Klaus Kinski being a absolute weirdo in this.
Mhm.
So okay, so we do have a card here that I wanted to show you, and
No.
yeah, I like that. It's sort of like so this is for the soundtrack and the track list. But here are the discs. We have the 4K disc, and we have the Blu-ray, which is the feature and the extras. So that's on a separate disc. Um, a whole disc of other extras. And as I said, this has the soundtrack. So really stacked. I mean, like this release has some heft to it. So I'm like, yes, I love that. Uh, so you're like, how is the movie though? You know, long time watchers of this show will be like, me and just Franco were kind of hot and cold. I respect his sleaze and how he kind of just made stuff his way. He was in a way like a bit of an auteur when it comes to that, like just kind of how like I can tell a Franco film from like a Frank Henenlotter film, etc. So, but this is really interesting because this sort of stripped Franco, pun intended, of his normal, like very ultra erotic, pseudo softcore, usual stuff, which is something that is fine, but it's just really not for me. But like, it's interesting to see him kind of breaking out of that. So the movie starts with a disclaimer saying like Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, and this is like this is going to be the most faithful adaptation that you've ever seen, ever in your life. Um, so I was like, all right, challenge accepted. I've read the book quite a few times. Is it super accurate? Kind of, but I'll get into that in a second. But Chris, the main draw is Christopher Lee, of course. He's playing Count Dracula, which obviously made him very famous back in the late 50s, playing that for Hammer. And this was, decades before he was in Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars prequels. Shout out to Tia, who who loves the prequels unabashedly. But yeah, so it's interesting to see him kind of playing that character again. And I will say that this, at least from a look point, um, he definitely looks more like how the novel describes Dracula. And there are some like really good, really creepy moments from the book that don't really get a lot of um, like screen presence in other adaptations. For example, when Dracula is like, he wants Harker for himself, or in this case, Renfield, which is a little different from the novel already, but to distract the vampire brides from just attacking what Dracula deems as his property, he brings them a baby from the local village, and then they proceed to like just tear this baby apart and eat it. It's not super graphic in this, and you do. I think they also kind of allude to that in the Francis Ford Coppola edition, but that's a scene that's really creepy in the book, and it's never really like, for obvious reasons, like baby murders, maybe not the most popular thing in movies, but like that's why you don't really see that in a lot of adaptations. But anyways, I thought that was cool that that was in there. Herbert Lom plays Renfield. He looks constantly constipated. Um, he does a fine job, but I feel like he's not connecting with the work. He just constantly looks like, again, constipated. Of course, Klaus Kinski plays Renfield. He's a proper weirdo. If the stories are true, which there's a lot of them, he was a proper weirdo in real life. But I think, yeah, he's kind of perfect as Renfield. It kind of is a shame that they didn't get Peter Cushing to come back as Van Helsing to sort of reunite them, him and Lee again, but sadly we don't get that. I think the movie is overall pretty good. I will say that there is like stretches where it is very dull, and honestly, that's kind of my biggest problem with Franco outside of just like making a softcore porn and like having a sort of story behind it. Which maybe that's shitty of me to generalize it like that, but I mean, honestly, it's not really that far off. So yeah, it's an interesting retelling of the novel. It's somewhat faithful. It's definitely not the most faithful adaptation, but it was an interesting ride. So as far as this looks, it does look really nice. You still have a little bit of like artifacts and scratches, but like the color really pops. I think like there's never any time when it really looks like shitty. You do get a really nice clarity and like depth in just like image, and I didn't really see a lot of like blurring or like softness like you were talking about. Um yeah, so it overall looks really nice, and the 4K, and as you can see there is just a ton of special features. And again, if you're a fan of this adaptation, I know Jess Franco has a big fan base, so that's awesome because I know he's a lot of his stuff's being re-released in really nice editions. So yeah, this is really awesome. And for my when I not now, but like when it's my turn again, I have something that's kind of an interesting companion piece to this. Um, which I think is really fun that Severin kind of put these out in sort of like all at once. So yeah, all again, really awesome release from Severin.
Awesome, and what a good tease to keep people tuned to the channel. My next title is once again another boutique label that we love. This is from Fun City Editions, and this is the Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz. So this is a Richard Dreyfuss vehicle. Here's another alternate artwork underneath the slip cover, and then you can kind of get a look at the back here. And there's no reverse bar, it's just white underneath. So I'll show you. Here is the disc artwork is kind of similar to the front, and then here's the booklets. I'll take that out here, so just white underneath. And then so there's the front again, and then there's Duddy given a finger on the back, and some nice essays and photo reproductions and all kinds of good stuff within it. So this one, it's solid. I'd actually I first heard of this movie when I was going through another boutique labels thread on Blu-ray.com, and someone was like, I want you to release this movie, and then the person responding was just like, I don't think that would ever like come to Blu-ray. And then lo and behold, Fun City Edition comes to the rescue and they are releasing this. So I'm like, great. I did want to watch this movie because it sounded interesting. And now Fun City Editions. Thank goodness. This is Richard Dreyfuss playing a role. He's a young man who, a young Jewish man who wants to make his way in the world. He's very kind of almost manic at points. And I actually was listening to, there's a commentary track on this about how apparently Dreyfuss doesn't really like his performance in this movie because he feels he overdid it. But the commentary film historian, and I guess I think it works for the character because he kind of seems a little bit unhinged in a way that really, it makes you uncomfortable, and I think the right way for this character, because what you come to learn is like Duddy, he's not supposed to be a completely likable character. You're not supposed to hate him, but he is someone who will do anything in order to further his lot in life, and that involves like like kind of scamming different people and taking advantage of people's good nature and just trying to just do everything he can to make money to try to eventually what it is leading up to. He is shown this kind of private parcel of land on the lake, and he wants to purchase this land and build up like a resort there that he can just build it up and be a landowner, because what his grandfather has instilled in him is like the most important thing you can do is own land. So he has that in his head, and this is kind of his journey throughout his life trying to get to that point. And along the lines, he meets a young a Gentile woman who this is I forgot to say this is takes place in Montreal. So this is a Canadian movie, and you come to learn a lot about the kind of like the Jewish culture here and how kind of things are, especially at this time because it's a period piece as well. What Duddy kind of believes he should be doing, and what he knows that he probably won't be able to marry this woman because she is not Jewish, but he doesn't really talk to her about that, and just kind of seeing his relationship with this woman mixed with his ambition. And then you also have this other character who shows up later, played by Randy Quaid, in a somewhat understated performance for Randy Quaid. This is a young Randy Quaid, but his arc is also pretty interesting in his friendship with Duddy. It's born out of Duddy wanting to take advantage of him, but it becomes something different once like it doesn't quite go as planned. But I really like this as a character examination because Dreyfuss, he doesn't hold back, like I said, and I think it's to the benefit. And you root for this character sometimes, you really despise what he does at other times, and just the different things he gets into is quite wild. But overall, I admire the movie. I like it. I think it's kind of a hard movie to like because of the character, but it's a movie that I think you're intrigued by, and you kind of want to figure it out. It's not like a complicated movie, but trying to figure out your own feelings about this movie and about the character, which I like that at least a movie can challenge me in that way, and at least makes me care and know that I care enough to have an opinion about what this character is doing. And I especially like the ending, which I will not reveal, but it is not. I would just say it's not a Hollywood ending, and I'll just leave it at that. And I do really appreciate that. But this release is pretty great, even though another label said this probably never be released on Blu-ray. It was, and it looks really nice. It comes from a 4K restoration of the 35mm inner positive. It looks very natural, has a nice film grain, not much in the way of nicks or scratches. It's been cleaned up very well. It's just a very nice looking transfer. Not even much in the way of softness or anything like Day the Locust kind of had. It doesn't really have any of that. It's just a really nice, consistent transfer. And this does have the aforementioned commentary track, which is quite enlightening. I learned quite a bit about the production of this and everything. That's the only true special feature besides a trailer for this one. But I think that is great, coupled with the booklet that has the essays and stuff. It's a good amount of information, even if there's not too much on disc special features besides the commentary track. But if you're a fan of Richard Dreyfuss or just kind of low, forgotten 70s indie movies, the apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz is worth checking out. It's a really fascinating movie, and I think it's worth a look.
Yeah, that sounds interesting, especially when you were saying it sort of challenges you in a way to sort of grapple with kind of this character and his moral sort of ambiguity. So I think that's always a fun time. So like I hinted at, my next title does tie directly into this title, which is I had to figure out how you pronounce these. So the first title is Vampir Cuadecuc. It's really weird. I don't know. I looked up how to pronounce it, so I don't know. But what I do know is this is a really interesting film. So it's essentially a very pared down version of Franco's Dracula, but it is done in black and white, no traditional dialogue, But taking this kind of weirdness a step further, even, is the fact that you have alternate takes from the film that they used in this, but you also get behind the scenes stuff going on. Like you'll randomly see a camera filming the action again from like a different vantage point, and you don't really understand. I mean, they don't really explain to you why this is happening, but that's kind of the fun of it. Is it is this very experimental film that sort of acts as, again, sort of like an alternative pared down version of Count Dracula with these, like, again, no traditional dialogue really. You will have like sound effects and things like that. The only thing that I thought would actually be kind of cool but maybe would ruin some of the sort of avant-gardeness is if it went full silent film and had like title cards.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's not hard to follow. So Hitchcock always said that silent films was what he called like pure cinema, where if you were doing your job correctly, you could show an audience something and you would understand it visually, what, versus just being told in exposition or a lot of dialogue and setup and stuff. So in a way, I feel like Hitchcock would probably say like this is like the purest of pure cinema. It's just this weird black and white kind of, again, sort of pseudo, like this has been called like a pseudo documentary on the making of Count Dracula, but again, it's also like you also kind of do follow along with the story, again, in sort of this pared down version, which actually I think kind of helps. I actually think this is like a really interesting kind of way to expedite maybe some of the more extraneous parts of Franco's film. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that's really cool, and I love that this was. So this easily could have been probably a part of that original set, but I do like how this is its own release on its own discs. Actually, speaking of, here's the inside, and we do have a booklet here that I wanted to mention really quick as well, um, because as weird as it is, like you get a lot of really good context
Mhm.
behind like what the director's intent was, and yeah, I feel like that's kind of important to really understand like what he was going for. And then the
Mhm.
next title, which is Umbracle, is kind of reminds me of that movie that I talked about a while ago called Dementia, which was this
Mhm.
very experimental black and white film that wasn't a silent film, but kind of had that sort of silent film essence, and it was very experimental. Um, yeah, this is also kind of like that. It's a very surreal take on horror. It almost feels like this could be an A24 movie like right now, and people would probably love it. So yeah, it is a black and white. It is a completely silent film. So again, you're just literally it, following the narrative, which is a little difficult when you don't have any like dialogue, but I think you get enough from the filmmaker that you can follow the story. And again, it's not really always about the like story, because I feel like these are more like mood pieces. Like they're just
Mhm.
vibes. You just kind of, it almost feels like the closest thing to putting a dream on film. And I know that sounds so pretentious when I say that out loud, but I don't kind of know how else to really describe it. And both of these films look really nice. I will say, like, again, um, the first feature is a little rough, and that's okay. I don't necessarily, again, think it's Severn's fault. I think it's, we're working with the best materials we have, but, we want to restore this and we want to put this out to the public. And honestly, I think that is the key thing. So, it still looks nice. I mean, it's not trash or anything. It's just I like to let y'all know like when something is maybe not the best, but still I think it's worth checking out just from a historical standpoint and film preservation. And I could probably say pretty much the same thing about the second feature, although I think like that holds up a little bit better as far as like the restoration goes. But yeah, both are really awesome. It's so amazing to have these, just have them, period. I know these were probably next to impossible to find prior. And we do have, again, a nice wealth of extras. So it's something that I wish some of the, like, like as much as we both love the studio releases, I wish they would give us a little extra in terms of like, especially if it's like a historically, relevant kind of film where you need a little bit more context to sort of fill in some of the gaps. And labels like Mondo and Severin and Arrow, they always do a really good job of like helping you like recontextualize what they're showing you with like documentaries and interviews and booklets and etc. So yeah, I mean, if you can pick both of these up because it's a really fun companion piece, and it's just so amazing that we get these and looking really nice.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I mean, maybe the first release might be a little weird if you haven't seen the Franco film, but I think both of them sound like unique releases, and
Yeah.
Severin's doing good work. I'm also going to talk about a pair of titles. These are two Sony titles, especially since I wanted to talk about these because there's still a little bit of time before Christmas. So if anyone is interested in some Christmas content, there's still some time to order these. So I wanted to talk about these kind of earlier in the month. My first title from Sony is the Emmet Otter's Jug-Band Christmas from the Jim Henson company. This is not a feature film necessarily. It's a special that runs a little less than an hour long. It's like 53 minutes, I believe. And this I had only really seen this on like cable television maybe once 10 years ago or something. So I was interested to check it out again. And it's not like up to the top tier of like Muppets content for me, even though there is a appearance from Kermit the Frog here. But this is a charming little feature. It's a kind of what I really like about it is kind of encapsulates the spirit of Christmas and like giving and like caring for each other, because it's basically a Jim Henson twist on the Gift of the Magi, and it's about like a mother and son Otter who they've recently lost her husband, and they are kind of like getting near Christmas, and it gets kind of dark where it's like they're kind of like destitute and they don't know what they're going to do for Christmas, but they both want to do something for one another. And there comes a opportunity for like this like talent show where there's like a cash prize that they both want to enter, but each of them entering would like end up messing up something for the other one, like because like Emmet, he wants to play in like the jug band, and he wants to create this like this instrument with his mom's wash tub, but by doing that he will destroy the wash tub, which like so he's kind of wrestling with that. And then she also has kind of a similar like conundrum of like whether or not she should like sacrifice something in order to give something for her, like get to try to win this for to have a good Christmas for her son. And it's really a story about how what actually this like the meaning of Christmas is, and what constitutes a gift, and like what's really important. And I think it's a really sweet message. And along the way there's some like there's some jug band tunes and like some good like Muppet goodness. It's not all heavy as hell, but it is like a nice kind of heartwarming like poignant Christmas tale as done by the Jim Henson Company. So it's a touching film and or special. And you may say, okay, this is less than an hour long. Do I really want to invest in this Blu-ray? And I understand that. And there are some things keeping me back from like full-heartedly recommending this, mostly because this was shot on standard definition video. So this has been kind of upscaled to look the best that it can, but it does not look good in the traditional sense. So if anyone gets this and they just pop it on and they don't know that context, they might be like, oh, this looks horrendous. But they wanted to present this in its best potential like quality. I by Even though it is a standard definition source that's upscaled, they are trying to make it like they are getting rid of some of like the compression artifacts and stuff like that that would kind of make it otherwise like similar to a DVD. But you do get that. You do get the like the lossless sound, and in addition to that, you get a good number of special features, which you don't always get with some of these Sony catalog titles that aren't given like the pristine 4K upgrade. This has a 11-minute retrospective on the piece, and 1 hour behind the scenes featurette, some deleted scenes, some a lost scene, some outtakes, and so a good number of special features that are on here to supplement the fact that maybe you're a little bit like perturbed that it's not a full-length feature, but I think they try to make up for it with some of the special features. And it is a heartwarming Christmas tale. It might not be up to the level of certain like Rankin and Bass stuff, but it's fun. And I think it, like, if you're a Christmas fanatic, like I know we are, I think it's a nice addition to the Christmas canon. And it's just a really nice feature, or a nice special. I do have a feature though, and this is also from Sony. And I think this is one that I'm going to guess that you're probably a fan of. This is Bell, Book, and Candle with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak. Yes. And so this is this was released previously like 8 or 9 years ago from Twilight Time, but that's long out of print. So Sony brought this back a couple years ago on Blu-ray themselves, and it looks very nice. I do not have that original Twilight Time release. For those who don't know, so this is kind of a reunion of the Vertigo pairing, but a very different dynamic where Kim Novak plays a witchy woman who I do like the blend of kind of the supernatural like Halloween elements with Christmas. I do like that there's a few movies that do this. And so yeah, and Jimmy Stewart plays her upstairs neighbor, and she ends up whenever she kind of gets into a situation of like jealousy, she ends up casting a love spell on Jimmy Stewart's character, and he falls in love with her, but then he comes to realize like that he does have this spell on her, so it's kind of on him. So it's trying to figure out if the feelings that he does have for her, are they genuine or are they a manifestation of this spell that's been cast upon him? And I do like kind of the dynamic of this and kind of learning a little bit about the witch culture and everything. And there's like a pretty good supporting cast, including Jack Lemmon as her brother, and like her mother, the woman who plays her mother, is quite like kooky and interesting as well. Well, it might be her aunt actually. I can't quite remember the dynamics, but overall, I do quite like this. It's like a little bit of romance, a little bit of like supernatural spookiness, and then it's a Christmas tale as well. So overall, this all blends together to like a unique Christmas experience that I quite enjoy. I first watched this about like 3 years back, so I was excited to revisit it, and it still holds up quite well, especially since the first time I watched it was on a pretty suspect stream, and I was very glad to see this on Blu-ray now because it looks a lot better. So there's no information about the restoration or anything, but I suspect this was from a recent restoration prior to this being released. It's been out a couple of years on disc now, but it looks very nice, consistent. Some good audio quality. This does have 3 featurettes about the movie that run from about 10 to 15 minutes long. So not a crazy amount of features, but some features. It's not bare bones, which is appreciated. So if you want a different type of Christmas experience this holiday season, Bell, Book, and Candle I think will suit you well. And I like that Jimmy Stewart is associated with so many holiday movies, and are also different from one another. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. I do love this movie. Like you said, it is that nice balance of sort of Halloween with the holidays, and that's definitely something that they kind of did with like Nightmare Before Christmas, obviously, but like I feel like this is sort of like that nice little mixture that works really well. Yeah, and like you said, great cast. This was a movie I wanted to get, but has been out of print and really expensive. So it's nice that like Sony has a good, affordable sort of imprint of that. So my next title is The Exiles, and this is a really interesting one. So here's the back with some really good features. No booklet or anything. This is the inside. So yeah, this is a movie that was very groundbreaking for the time because it was sort of a it's fictional, but it takes sort of a sort of like cinema verite kind of approach where it's a glimpse into the lives of Native American people and sort of like what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But the movie is very I want to say like unpolished, but maybe deliberately to kind of just give you that sort of like rough and ready, like these characters, to various degrees are not likable, but likable. But again, that's kind of real life, and these people are flawed, but you get to really learn about their lives and sort of like gives you a little bit of a glimpse of sort of who they are, why they do what they do. Um, I will say what really bugs me about this movie is the dubbing is really wild. It is just really bad to the point where it's distracting. And I mean, it was made on a very low budget, so I have to wonder if like some of like the sync sound was maybe a little bit off or something. But again, I give you my unfiltered opinion. I think it's a groundbreaking and great movie. But it's also there's just things that can be kind of grating, like, and again, the dub is really something else. Like I feel like I've seen better dubs in like kung fu movies and stuff where it's like the um I don't know. But anyways, yeah, I think this movie is also kind of famous for its rock and roll score and use thereof. This was from 1961, so the idea wasn't necessarily new to really, have like rock and roll as kind of a basis for your soundtrack. Like, um, what was it? Concrete Jungle famously used Rock Around the Clock, which caused riots. There's other examples from the 50s, I'm sure. But again, I want to mention this element because it still was not something super mainstream like we see today with like really amazing like rock soundtracks for movies. And, it's not really like as iconic as maybe like Rock Around the Clock or like some other things, but like it's still very effective. And I think it kind of gives you this sort of pseudo grimy kind of like again documentary-ish feel, and again the soundtrack really does propel that forward, I think. Narrative wise, I think it's fine. Again, it's a little bit like if you're not really connecting with all of the characters, it is a little bit of a slog at times. But again, I like it in the fact that it really like tells people's story in a way that I feel seems authentic. Obviously, I can't relate to that particular walk in life, but outside looking in, like it seems very authentic, and I believe that the people involved kind of shared their stories to make it feel authentic. So yeah, I think that that's all really cool. As far as restoration goes, it looks really good. This was restored by the UCLA restoration department. It is a little rough and ready in places, but again, I think that's just by virtue of like the film elements they were working with. But overall, it's really nice. It's black and white, and I think the for the most part, the contrast between the black and white looks really nice. You do get a lot of depth, and again, there is a little bit of artifacts and scratches and stuff, but it's nothing that I felt was distracting. What was distracting was the dub. But they couldn't help that. That was just baked in there. But yeah, we do, as I say, get a lot of really great extras that again do put a emphasis on making this film, and not only that, but just more importantly, culturally and historically, um, what was being portrayed in the film, and giving you that really important context. So yeah, if this hasn't been on your radar, it is a really interesting film. It's definitely made a lot of like lists as far as like movies that you really need to see. I think there was that famous was it like 1,000 movies to see before you die or something, but like that's part of this book. And yeah, it's definitely worth it. It's like a really interesting sort of time and place. And again, you weren't really hearing a lot of things from that specific group, so like especially at the time. So it's a good watch. It's just I didn't fully connect with it, but that's okay. I still can appreciate it. Um, and just again how it refocuses the story on a marginalized group that still really needs, like still doesn't get enough chances to tell their story even today. So
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go too much into my thoughts because I talked about this on my solo video a couple of weeks ago, but pretty much I mirror what you say. It's a movie I appreciate more than I love. But yeah, it's a good release. I will give it that. And like the special features are really great, especially because the commentary on there are from two native people, and just hearing them speak about it, it made me appreciate the film even more. So I highly recommend the release, even if narratively it's okay. My next title, this is from Ronin Flicks, and this is There's Nothing Out There, which the marketing and like the pull quote on the front is very like prominent about kind of comparing it to Scream, and kind of it's like basically saying like Wes Craven didn't do it first, like satirizing horror, and but in like a kind of like a good natured way. So I will kind of show off here and then kind of speak about the movie. So there's 2 discs in here. So disc 1 and 2, and this does look to have reversible cover art, which I will show off here in just a second. And so I don't get to talk about Ronin Flicks too much, but anytime they do put out something, I always find it very interesting. Here is the reversible cover art, close to the original, but different. And I believe this is looks to be a fold out poster. Yes. So there it is in all its glory. So yeah, so 2 disc and a foldable poster. This film, I do understand why they kind of compare this to Scream in a way. It came out in 1990, and it does involve like a group of friends who go off to a remote cabin, and they have that one member of the group who's like obsessed with horror movies and is constantly like making self-aware references of just like, oh, this isn't good, or oh, this is here, we like this mean like I'm going to take precautions so I don't die because this is some creepy shit here, or like, oh, here are these like basically like these hippie characters who would normally be dispatched like are bathing in front of our like cabin and stuff, and just kind of making like self-aware references of just like horror movie tropes. And so it's kind of going down that dynamic, and he's kind of annoying all of the people around him because they're just like, okay, you're like, some of them aren't even like that close friends with him. It's like one guy's friends with him and everyone else is kind of just tolerating him because he was brought along. But then things do start to happen that's like they're in a horror movie. But what makes it different from Scream is it's not a like a slasher. It is more of a supernatural element, and you can kind of actually see that here. This like creature here, which is so like wonderfully low rent. You gotta love it just because it's like it looks like almost like a student like kind of cobbled together something from like paper mache. It's a little bit better than that, but it's very low rent. And like so you kind of have to kind of roll with the indie nature of this where it's like, yeah, this looks cheesy as hell, but it's like funny that it's like so low rent. And then like it can like shoot these little lasers. It's kind of like looks like very early digital effects, like doo 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 to like kind of like mind control type situation. So it's kind of like survive this cabin, survive this this creature, and trying to figure things out for the people who do survive, with a little humorous overtones and self awareness throughout. And overall, I think it's good. It's definitely not as good as Scream. So Scream did it better if they didn't do it first, but it is a fun time if you kind of like if you like indie throwback horrors from like the 80s and 90s, but just with not so serious with itself. Like it has a certain level of self-awareness, which I do appreciate. It's overall a good movie. And this is a really stacked release. This does come with it comes from a 2K restoration that looks pretty solid. Some softness here and there, maybe some brief nicks and scratches remaining, but overall it's been cleaned up very well and it looks very nice and consistent. It has 2 commentary tracks, and then the second disc is like all full of short films and like student features from the director. So there's like some interesting stuff in there as well. So you don't usually get that on like vintage releases, but whenever you do like get some of the like full collection of directors' early works like this, I think it's really fascinating. So Ronin Flicks really seem to put a good amount of care into this. So if you like satirical horror, there's nothing out there. It's very low rent and silly. It's a step above like shot on video horror, but it's just very low rent. I'll just say that. Overall, I liked it, and it's a good release from Ronin Flicks.
Nice. And um, correct me if I'm wrong, but this also was maybe out of print for a little while, right? Like I think Vinegar put this out, or trying to think who was it.
It would not surprise me. I haven't looked into it that much, but that is probably correct.
Yeah, so that I mean that's exciting because again, was that Dakota that did that? David Dakota, or my gosh, Dakota,
The commentary track.
or the filmmaker.
No. This is written and directed by Rolf Konevsky.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was thinking of the commentary track or something. Yeah, no, that's cool though, because so am I remembering this correctly? Did this one start in a video store, like the opening scene?
Yes, yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen this a while ago, so
Mhm.
I have like fuzzy memories of like both of us see so many movies.
Yes.
They all kind of blur together. So I'm sticking with Kino here, and sticking in the vein of sort of delving into other cultures. And that is Tokyo Pop. And here's the back, and nothing going on inside. Yeah, so this is another film that um I liked, but like with an asterisk. So I think this is a pretty interesting and charming little film. It centers around a woman she's an American woman who goes to Japan to discover the music scene. She's a musician, and she meets this guy who's native from Japan, and he's also in a band. They form this sort of unlikely duo. They actually sort of develop some like fame in Japan, and they sort of develop this relationship. It's kind of very odd because they do not seem like they have a lot of chemistry at first, and it's even like anti-chemistry, like where a lot of times she's telling him to like not be such a creep, and like he does creepy things, but maybe it's sort of a cultural thing, but still it's creepy. And So I think my problem is the actors don't really, they're good. The actors are really good, but they don't have that chemistry. And so when they have such a rocky start in their relationship in the movie, it's not like something where there is just this palpable, radiant chemistry. And you're like, oh, it's like, it's inevitable. They're going to get together. They're going to be together. And I'm just like, are they though? And when they are, I'm just like, should they be though? So yeah, no. So what I did really also really like about this movie though, um, is despite it kind of dragging in a little bit of places, um, it is really endearing. Like it is kind of interesting to kind of see Tokyo in a very specific time and place, but also the music scene. Um, I don't know how accurate that is. Um, my big complaint about this release is there is no interviews or booklet or commentary track or anybody maybe native from Japan that could, was in that scene and could tell me, was this accurate? Was this sort of just somebody's sort of idealized version of the, pop scene and music scene in Tokyo at the time? But we don't get that. So I kind of have to fill in the blanks because I obviously, was not around at that time. So, I mean, what year was this? 88. So I was just a wee little thing because I'm not that. But yeah, so I mean, it's just I hate when I have to fill in the blanks with that kind of stuff. I mean, it does seem kind of accurate, like the things that they're sort of portraying. But again, I don't know. But the movie's fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I did find it endearing at times because despite the actors not really having chemistry together, I think they do have a lot of personality where I was able to sort of be with them on their journey, even if I had a hard time really buying the romance, which was like a big factor of the film. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this was another one I covered on my last solo episode, and I maybe like it a little bit more than you, but I kind of understand. I don't think they had like palpable chemistry. I think it was just endearing enough, especially with how the movie ends up. It's kind of more of a realistic, natural ending, which I kind of
Yeah,
appreciate. So overall, I think they had more of a closeness rather than like a strictly romantic relationship, which it was enough for me to like. I think it was a charming movie. I do think this like additional special features would have helped clarify some things. I was surprised it was so bare bones, but it looks great. So I'm glad that
yeah.
there is at least a really nice restoration of it. I think it's. I saw that it came from like Dolly Parton's restoration, like fun, like musician fun, and
Oh wow,
like
that's
it had
cool.
like or no, Jane Fonda's fund and Dolly Parton like contributed money along with
Oh,
someone else that was pretty prominent. The She Tugs Her Ear,
Carol
Carol
Burnett.
Burnett. Carol
Yeah.
Burnett, yeah. So I think that's pretty cool that both of them. I was just like, redhead, let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's a
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's so cool. Like what can Dolly not do really? Like, oh my God, she's um
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Supporting forgotten female filmmakers, I appreciate that. Um, my next title, I gotta say, this is unfortunately one of the kind of duds of my lineup, but we got to keep it real. It's from a label I really love, but this one did not work for me. This is from NBD Entertainment. This is part of the Rewind collection. This is Hail Caesar, and not the Coen Brothers one. This is the early 90s Anthony Michael Hall directorial debut of himself in this movie. And this is okay. There's also a young Sam Jackson here as a like a mailman who's being like getting attacked by a dog like every few scenes. and he's getting very fed up with it. He doesn't get to let loose quite as much as usual, but he lets out some expletives. You do have this nice fold out poster. So this kind of seems like it's Anthony Michael Hall at kind of the tail end of his 80s charm. He's kind of more because he had a very distinct look in the 80s, and then he's like has a very distinct look now, and he's like in that midpoint where he's like he's kind of boyish but also coming like a kind of more of a grizzled man, and his kind of obnoxious nature. He plays a character named Caesar, who's kind of just got like or Julius Caesar, who's kind of just gotten by on life and done whatever he wants to and doesn't really think about any of the consequences. He's just kind of floating through life, kind of aimless. And he's part of a band who they kind of want to break out and make it big. And he has this relationship with this daughter of a very wealthy businessman. And this guy, he is so frustrated that his daughter is dating Caesar. And he sets him up where he like enters into he offers to like basically pay him off not to date his daughter, which he does not go for. But he also he gets him to enter into kind of like this bet that if like he doesn't make like $100,000 in a year, like he'll have to break up with her. And if he does, he'll like give like his blessing and everything. So it's kind of Julius trying to come into a maturity and learn how to be a self-sufficient like adult. But there's like some shady business stuff going on at the business that he's kind of starts to work for, which is her dad's business, which is they make rubber erasers for pencils. It's all kind of extraneous stuff, but it's just basically not very funny, and it's kind of just all over the place. Like I see where they kind of wanted jokes to be, but it just never really made me laugh. The direction is standard. It doesn't seem like it doesn't enhance its flaws or like rise above its flaws with like flashy direction or anything. It's just very standard. It's just a very forgettable 90s comedy that you wouldn't think about if it wasn't directed by Anthony Michael Hall. It just also this is really weird because this was like the same day that I watched Oppenheimer. There's a very young Robert Downey Jr. here in like a bit part, and that was very contrasting performances. So for Robert Downey Jr. completists, there is that. So early Avengers, you had Samuel L. Jackson and Robert Downey Jr. So there you go. There is maybe the best scene is an appearance from Judd Nelson in like one scene. So reuniting the Brat Pack. It's fine, but it's not enough to really make me say that you should seek this movie out. If you're really a huge fan of all these people, sure. Otherwise, no. The Blu-ray itself also, unfortunately, is from a very dated master that does not look very good. So it doesn't even look fantastic to supplement things. And there's no special features besides a trailer. So there's a trailer and then that mini poster. So I don't know. It's a movie. It didn't really work for me. I like these performers. It just didn't work. I didn't like it.
Yeah, that it's funny because I was thinking you were reviewing the Coen brothers film, and I was really excited that got like a re-release and like to talk about that. But yeah, it's like it's kind of like that classic like, no, we have Hell Caesar at home, and it's like the Male Schmeezer, like the off-brand. But that does make an interesting double feature with Oppenheimer.
For sure.
This is my final Kino title, and one that I feel very divided, but we're going to get into it. So this is the documentary about Tom Wolfe, Radical Wolfe. and nothing going on inside. I can probably say the same about the movie.
I
Uh,
saw you tweeting about it. We didn't talk about it, but I saw you tweeting.
yep, yep. Well, like I said, we're gonna get into it. So I want to be really fair. There are a lot of aspects of this movie that I do like. That I think, um, first of all, I think the direction is really well done. I like how visually the documentary does a lot of really interesting things to sort of break out of that mode of like not just talking heads. And he makes it very dynamic, with like animation and some like really interesting sort of like ways to thread the story along. So that's all really great. John Hamm narrates, reading some passages from Wolfe's work. um, that works out amazingly. He's got a great voice. Apparently I have a basic voice. That's a whole other thing. But John Hamm, he's got it going on. Like I don't know. He's got a great voice. He's handsome. He's successful. I hate him. Not really, but anyways. So yeah, those are things I liked about it. Again, and also I will say, like, as far as like a complete narrative through line, I think it does a really nice job. It doesn't really it it gives you a little bit of his like life, like pre-writing, but it sort of just fast tracks through that so you can sort of get into what you really want to hear about, which is like writing his with like his books and stuff. Um so what I didn't like about it was, um it, it really bothers me when like there is this sort of like straight washing, and this is what I was tweeting about, which was like, a couple of the people when they were talking about bonfires of the vanities, um, which is very cringe for a lot of reasons, which they do talk about. But like, a couple of the participants were talking about, oh, this weaving of like journalism and fiction. Oh my gosh, this has never been done before. And I'm like, but it has though. Like Truman Capote did that like decades ago, and in my opinion, a lot better in Cold Blood. But again, it feels like this weird sort of like straight washing. That's pretty gross. I mean, I will say that Wolfe and his writing is kind of taken to task for some maybe problematic elements. It also highlights a really cringe moment in his career where, um so it was this very it's probably this very I mean, it was a very famous dinner party that was being held, and essentially it was a fundraiser for the Black Panther Party, which were controversial, but in essence they were trying to raise money for equality and making things better for that particular community. So what does Wolf do? Being this straight white guy, he comes in, he writes this. He is uninvited to this party, but he comes in anyways. He writes this scathing review of like how these people weren't being authentic, and why should they donate money to this really good cause for these marginalized people. And yeah, I mean, some of the participants do take him to task for that, being like, the one participant was saying, it was mean, bordering on cruel. And they have interviews with Wolf in hindsight being like, I don't, him essentially saying, I don't feel bad because I was just speaking my truth. And, people were telling me that like the donations really fell off after that. And like essentially he didn't give a shit. And I'm like, dude, you're a fucking piece of shit. Um, and I think I just think he's so pretentious, like the way he words stuff. And I don't know. I'm not a fan. Like this did not sort of convert me to Tom Wolfe and his work and his really cringe ideas. And I know like Bonfire of the Vanities had a really interesting way at looking at African American people. And I say interesting, I mean like pretty gross. So I don't know. I didn't like it, but I will say that it's a well-made documentary. I just think like it could have been better. They should try to do better with stuff like that, but also like he just seems like a garbage person. I'm sorry, but that's my hot take.
I have no opinion on him. I know nothing beyond the facts you just told me. So there we go. I agree. He's garbage. I'll just go along with that.
Right.
I am interested as someone who doesn't really know much about him. Like maybe I'll check it out to see what I think, but
Yep.
also with the knowledge that maybe they're not completely telling everything I might need to
Yeah.
know. So
And again, it is well made. I don't want to like shit all over the entire thing. There is a lot of aspects of it that I thought are really extremely well done, but it's just
yeah. My final pair of titles are once again two Sony titles that I was quite intrigued by this week. The first one is actually, these are both pretty heavy titles, especially this first one. But this is a directorial debut from an actor that is a lot better than the one I just talked about. This is the directorial debut of Gary Oldman. This is Nil By Mouth, which is a really tough drama that has Ray Winstone, Layla Morsi, Edna Dory, Kathy Burke. It's a pretty solid cast, just standard artwork within here. So this is basically a portrait of like a family / community, like general friendship or group, where everyone is pretty bad shape, either financially, emotionally, like mentally, like it's just a very rough part of I believe it's London, South London. All these characters, like you have one character who's like very hooked on drugs and like stealing from people, and then you have another played by Ray Winstone who's very gregarious and really takes his wife for granted to the point where he's like abusive to her, and just seeing her life and how she kind of is attempting to live with her husband who is like abusive. And like this isn't like poverty porn, but they're all just, everyone is just so miserable in this movie. It can be a very rough watch. But what I really like, his wife, who I believe is played by Kathy Morsi or Kathy Burke, she is really great in this role, and she has like a particularly like heartbreaking breakdown kind of like 3/4 of the way throughout the movie that I think really just kind of solidified the movie for me, that made it kind of worth kind of this emotional burden I put on myself watching all of these characters. But they're interesting, and it doesn't leave you in like a terrible place. It's just not a lot of the light or levity is let into this film. It's just a lot of people struggling. It's a lot of people are victims of their circumstances and like their environment. But then there's also a lot of choices that are made that, yes, there are these stressors in these environments, but you don't necessarily have to take them out in these ways. We don't have to have movies that are like, oh, 100% like fantastic, like lovable characters. I just want to warn people, this is not a sunny viewing by any means, but it is a very engrossing movie, and like ultimately very interesting. And I think Gary Oldman, even though I don't think he's directed that much since then, he has a really nice eye for like direction, and like this does have a little bit of flourish, like I was saying was missing on the last film. I think it's quite interesting. So Nil By Mouth. This opens up with like a little title card saying that's been restored recently, I believe by the BFI. So this is a pretty nice transfer, and it looks very nice and clean. All the film grain is well resolved. It's a pretty good encode. No special features besides the theatrical trailer, but overall it's a solid disc for a film that probably a lot of people don't really know much about. And the same could be said for the other film that I'm talking about, and that is this is more of a steamy one from Sony Pictures Classics. This is Caught. Ooh, yeah. And this has the great Edward James Olmos in here, but also has Maria Conchita Alonso. And it's not completely groundbreaking, but I think it's done pretty well. This is about a couple played by the two I just talked about, Edward and Maria, who run this fish market, like fish, like they sell fish out of the store in New York, maybe Chicago, New York, I think though. Too many movies. And one day, this young man who has been living on the streets, he is unhoused. He is fleeing from the law because he is someone stashes something on him unfairly, and he has to get away before he can get caught and be blamed for this thing that is not actually his. But he runs into their store and he just kind of asks for water and stuff. But then the wife character, she takes it upon herself to really start taking care of him and wants to try to like help get him to like a place where he's not living on the streets, and he gives him a job, or she gives him with the begrudging acceptance of her husband a job at the store, and they kind of start to like kind of become like he becomes more of a self-sufficient, and then almost kind of a part of this family unit, while their son, who he is moved out of the house and moved to California to try to make it in the entertainment business. So they have kind of that vacuum in their relationship where they had a child who's no longer in the house, and now this kid, or this young man, is like 20 something year old, is now living in their house and working at their establishment. Where things get complicated is the wife, she is kind of taken for granted by her husband, who's always working and stuff, and she has these desires, and she strikes up a romance with the young man, and there it goes from there. Of course, there's going to be the eventual fallout and stuff from this, but it's more so about these relationship dynamics between the characters and the lack of fulfillment from this woman who's been taken for granted for so long, and but also this almost like father-son relationship between Edward James Olmos and this young man, who never really connected with his own son because he's always kind of been more of like a goofball that he didn't really take seriously, like hence him being off to try to make it in Hollywood. Whenever he returns, things really start to get interesting because he sees his dad bonding with this kid in a way or this young man in a way he never did with him, and it's like jealousies and all kinds of complicated dynamics. This could seem very melodramatic, and there are points of this, but overall it's handled very well. Even like the steamy scenes aren't exploitative, but they're kind of appropriately steamy and what you want from this movie, like this type of movie. And the performances are really good. Edward James Olmos, he's always solid, and he does a really good job in this one, and Maria does a really great job as well. Overall, it doesn't do anything super unexpected, but overall it's what it does well. It's executed quite well from a directorial standpoint, and like structuring a script and everything. It just works. I wouldn't say it's an erotic thriller. It's more of like a kind of erotic drama, like domestic drama. But overall, I liked it. It's not great, but it's perfectly solid. 2 thumbs up from Siskel and Ebert. So take that for what it's worth. In addition to my opinion, the transfer looks very consistent and nice clear picture, solid encode, no nicks or scratches or anything, no special features at all, but overall AVD quality is quite nice. So Caught, if you're in the mood for what I just talked about, like that type of story, it's pretty solid. If you're one of those like young people on social media who talk about there's too much nudity in movies these days, stay away from this one, because there are quite a few sex scenes in here that can get little steamy in here. So
yeah, and it's like anymore, it's like Gary Oldman, am I right?
mm-hmm.
Because he's old. No, but
all right.
woo.
Here you go. Give you your claps.
Thank you. So yeah, that sounds interesting. And did Gary Oldman like direct? You said he didn't really direct a lot of movies, right? You said that was a pretty interesting.
Yeah, I haven't recalled him directing more movies, so that's why I said I don't think he's directed that much more. He may have directed a few, but I haven't delved into how many he has.
That's interesting, especially since you said it was really good and he's a
Mm.
pretty good director.
Yeah.
So my final title, I saved this the big boy for
Mm.
last, Babylon 5, the complete series. So here is the back. And it's like in one of these. And so just I mean, of course, just really be careful because like these have a tendency to break. Although
Yeah.
again, like I think this is the better option of like these big sort of. So here is you get the episode list and um again like the gatefold thing. So yeah, this is a show that it's been a long time since I've really sort of like got into. This was like very early 90s when I was kind of getting into like sci-fi.
Mhm.
And the plot is basically this takes place in the 23rd century, and it is like this Earth Alliance space station known as Babylon 5. And they're basically kind of like space UN in a way.
Mhm.
And it's sort of this framework where they sort of talk about like kind of heavy topics like, war and racial tension. And the the idea about behind this was kind of interesting because they're like the creators were saying that they always had envisioned this being exactly 5 seasons. They had exactly where they wanted to start and where they wanted to go. And it was like convincing the network, that this overarching story that, fans have to sort of like, be on board with and have to watch every single episode was kind of a novelty, which is such an interesting thing nowadays. But, in the early 90s, like this was sort of like revolutionary. And
Mhm.
speaking of that, I don't know if we really appreciate the fact that like this was one of, if not the first series to use computer effects in a series, not just a movie.
Mhm.
And then this also has a really good distinction of later on in the series, internet marketing. Um, they did some really cutting edge stuff to, really promote the film, but also engage with fans and have that kind of um, show to fan sort of relationship. So it's really fascinating. The show itself is, I think, like the first season, like rewatching this has been really interesting because like the first season is a little bit like it doesn't really hit its stride until I think even like mid second season. But again, I think like I love the satirical aspects of it. I do like it has this humor, but it's not comedy. It's more of a drama, but you do get a lot of social commentary, but it never feels so in your face that you feel like preached at. Like it
Mhm.
uses the sci-fi elements as a really good springboard for like heavy topics, and that's nothing new. I mean, the original Star Trek was like, pretty bold for, using science fiction as a way to really talk about prescient things and things that are sadly still kind of relevant, like race and, war and these really heavy topics. So, yeah, that's been really fun. I like the characters. Again, I think later on in the series, things get a little bit better, get a little bit more interesting. First seasons always kind of have that problem where they have to convey so much like setup, and
Mhm.
the second season doesn't have to lay all that groundwork. So it's been really fun revisiting these. I'm like into like the third season now. Like there was 110 episodes, so I didn't conceivably think
Yeah.
I would get through all of these. And I did touch upon the Babylon 5 spinoff movie. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that. It was like something home, journey home, or I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I just kind of love hearing about how wild it was for people to like have to sort of watch every episode to sort of get the entire story. Was such a it's so wild because that's like every show basically, you know, like
Mhm.
even stuff that's not necessarily a long overarching story is like, you know, you still have reoccurring characters or plot lines, even if you can kind of more or less just jump into an episode and
Mhm.
be fine. So yeah, it was pretty groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy that this got a really nice release. So as far as it looks, I've really never seen any other home video release of the original series. Again, this was something that I caught like as it was on. Um, but I will say, like the Blu-ray looks really nice. Everything looks really clean. You can tell that the cameras and stuff that they were using was a little bit nicer than your average so of the up convert to 1080p, you know, you get that boost in clarity. This is such a really cool, visually interesting show. To that end, some of the effects you really notice, but like the practical effects, the alien makeup and stuff, all that stuff holds up really well, and again looks really nice in this presentation. So yeah, I don't really recall. Do you know if they did Blu-rays of this before, or is it just strictly like
Mm-mm.
okay,
No, this was the first time it's on Blu-ray. It's just been
nice.
like the huge brick DVD sets in the past that people had to spend like $100 each on. So this is a lot better value.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I thought that was the case. So thank you, Warner Brothers, for putting this out in a nice collected format. It is a fun show. It's one of those things I love, especially in the wintertime. I love getting like a big box set or like a
Mhm.
big like show thing and then just like tucking into that and then just like hibernating, watching like 10 episodes a day or something unhealthy. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So yeah, so that is our episode. As always, we had a lot of fun checking these out, and we appreciate y'all checking these out with us. And having said that, any comments, likes, all that stuff is much appreciated. I love reading y'all's comments. It's really fun. Even though it's a little scary because it's YouTube and the comment section, but y'all seem really cool, so I love that. Um, you know, also just to say, please subscribe. We have a lot of really cool stuff. My interview with Luke Wilson is up, which was really cool, and we have a lot of great stuff. Tia is doing her top 10 videos again, and those are great. Again, everybody's crushing it with content, so that comes out daily. So you want to subscribe, and as always, thank you for hanging out with us.